Hello and welcome to Two Tiers Deep, the Women's Cricket Weekly Show, with me, Rosa Simpkin.
And me, Chloe Hill.
I'm the journalist, working in all the tiers of women's cricket.
And I'm the cricketer, currently playing in the game.
We saw a gap in the market, mainly from a Tier 2 coverage perspective. So we thought, why not start a podcast? To start with, we probably should explain something to you, which otherwise, none of this will make any sense. Last year, the ECB announced Project Darwin, a project to hand the game back to the 18 counties, split into 3 tiers. Tier 1 is the professional level, consisting of the Blaze, Durham, Essex, Lancashire, Hampshire, Somerset, Surrey and Warwickshire. I could go into the depths about why the Blaze aren't knots, but we'll leave that for another time.
And Tier 2 counties are made up of Derbyshire, Glamorgan, Gloucestershire, Kent, Leicestershire, Middlesex, Northamptonshire, Sussex, Worcestershire and Yorkshire.
And then Tier 3 are the national counties.
Before we get started on today's episode, I'd like to give a shout out to our leading partner, Her Game 2. Her Game 2 Cricket partnered the Rose Talks Ball podcast and all the branches of the show, including Two Tiers Deep. Her Game 2 aims to spread a message of hope and equality throughout sport. Initially only in football, they have recognised that discrimination towards women and girls in sport is not limited only to football, so they have expanded into other sports, including cricket, where they can support, encourage and inspire women in the game. If you'd like to find out more about the work they are doing, you can find them online through their website, hergame2.co.uk/cricket, or you can find them on social media by searching for Her Game 2 Cricket. Thank you as always to Her Game 2 for their support of the podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Two Tiers Deep podcast. And it's been quite the week. It's been quite the week of action. The 100, Tier 2, and Chloe, we've got a very exciting guest joining us shortly.
I know, I'm looking forward to chatting all things cricket, even more cricket. And guess what? More cricket. I guess it's been a bit of a busy week, but we'll digest a little bit more about what's going on in Tier 2, and also we'll discuss a little bit of return of the Tier 1. Tier 1 matches are back as well.
To start with, though, as the focus has been very much so in recent weeks, Tier 2, we had the final group stage matches of the Metrobank One Day Cup League 2, which meant 6 teams ended their 2025 seasons. We're going to have a quick look at the group stage matches. I'm going to tell you the results and then the player of the matches, etc. All of the games were played on Saturday, the 30th of August. We start with Derbyshire versus Sussex, and unfortunately, Derbyshire did not get what we really hoped would be their first win of the competition. Sussex won by 69 runs through the DLS method. Player of the match for that game had to be Daisy Mulan of Sussex, 82 not out from 102 in the chase. Probably was on for a century if the rain hadn't intervened. The second game was Glamorgan versus Northants, which Chloe was taking part in. However, there was a no result here after Northants were 157 from 44 overs. Because of there not being a result, I don't think there can be an official player of the match, but shout-outs need to go to Michaela Kirk for 54 and Katie Cobb for 2 for 18 from 10 overs. And also, Chloe, you dug in. You dug in deep with that knock.
I was so mentally exhausted from that knock. I literally, when I got out, I had to sit in the change room for probably like half an hour just to decompress. Yeah, that was a proper grafting innings for the team to, I guess, not be all out and put ourselves in a situation if we did get back out there if the rain stopped.
I mean, the rain definitely came down in quite intense numbers. I mean, you messaged me at like 3 p.m. and I was like, oh, you've already got the game off right then. Moving on to Kent versus Yorkshire, and while it was not a good day in the office for Kent, Yorkshire won by 279 runs after putting on 404 for 5 from their 50 overs. Kent were 125 all out. The player of the match, I think it's obvious, Laura Minfield-Hill, 194 not out. Let me say that again clearer. 194. She got out. Chloe's pointing out to me, she did get out of 126 balls. Sorry, I was so excited about the amount of runs. The highest score in Yorkshire men's or women's List A history. Pretty unbelievable, if you ask me. Moving on to Leicestershire Foxes versus Gloucestershire. Gloucestershire won by 28 runs through DLS. Player of the match has to be Profana Reddy for 91 not out from 90. She was definitely robbed of a century through the rain. And finally, Middlesex versus Worcestershire, where it was an also familiar tale for Middlesex, taking the win by 40 runs for DLS method. For me, there are two players that need shout outs here for different reasons. Hannah Davis managed 4 for 42 from 9.4 overs, whilst Katie Wolfe managed 3 for 26 from 10, both Middlesex bowlers, bowling Worcestershire out for 177. Quite the performance. And before we have a quick look at the table, Chloe, I've just remembered there's a listener we have to give a shout out to. Mike Robinson, who sent me an email the other day because last week I teased you a little bit for your 360-degree shots in your chase. And Mike was at that game and sent us some photos he'd taken, which he turned into a GIF of that moment. And it's nice to know that we actually have listeners who engage. How exciting is that?
I'll tell you what, the photo was unbelievable, or the gift in all was unbelievable. Big shout out to Mike, and I guess thanks for snapping that really cool moment of me doing a 360 circle.
Also, massive shout out to Mike, because it means we can now use pictures of you playing for Northants on the podcast graphic. So, yay to Mike.
Finally, we can change it up now.
Chloe, do you want to take us through the table for the last time?
Perfect. So, as the table stands leading into, I guess, the final weekend, which is the semi-finals of Tier 2. So, the table standings are Middlesex at the top, winning 9 from 9. In second place is Glamorgan, played 9, won 7, lost 1 and had 1 no result, which was against Northants the other day. In third place, Northants played 9, won 7, lost 1 and had 1 no result. In fourth place and taking the last spot of the semi-finals position is Yorkshire, played 9, won 5 and lost 4. In fifth place, Gloucestershire, played 9, won 5 and lost 4. In sixth place, Worcestershire Rapids, played 9, won 4, lost 5. Seventh was Sussex, played 9, won 4, lost 5. And in eighth place, Leicestershire, played 9, won 2, lost 7. In ninth place, we have Kent Women, finishing with a little bit of a sad season, played 9, won 1 and lost 8. But pulling up at the end, in 10th place is Derbyshire with a really sad season of played 9, won 0 and lost all 9. And I guess that leads us quite nicely into the semi-final matches. On Saturday, the 6th of September, we have Glamorgan Women against Northampton Steelbacks. Whoop, whoop, shout out. And that is at 10:30 at Sophia Gardens. And then on Sunday, the 7th of September, we have Middlesex taking on Yorkshire at 10:30 at Radlett Cricket Club.
And I'd just say, one of the things I am really looking forward to over the winter is not having to go through tables. Because my word, it pushes us both over the edge every week.
You need to make sure that is edited smoothly. There's no errors in there. I sound great and I haven't messed up the table, okay?
You did a great job. What do you mean they're not going to hear it? That you did a great job.
Thanks.
I mean, can I just say, Derbyshire, we love you. And we're very sorry that you didn't win any games. And we really hope for your sanity that you have a better season next year. But Chloe, you're playing in the semi-final. You're playing in the semi-final. Woo woo! How are you feeling?
Yeah, really good to be fair. I think, obviously making that move to Northants for the last 5 or 6 Metro Bank games, has been a positive move for myself, but also really positive for Northants just to see how they've gone about their cricket and how successful I guess Northants have been in this last sort of run up to the semi-final. It just proves that such a great team environment, coach environment, and also such a new team that has been brought together this season and how successful. Literally like Middlesex, I guess, like just being brought together, not one of the teams that is going up to Tier 1. and holding a strong position at the top of the table to be in a semi-final run.
I mean, you're right, we do have to talk about Middlesex because my word, what an unbelievable season. They won the Vitality Blast, shocking, I think, everyone that they beat Yorkshire in that final. And now they're playing Yorkshire again in a semi-final. And it might be a bit of a spicy game for that reason.
Oh, 100%. Yorkshire are going to be wanting to get the win over them and prove a point that they're the right team to be going up to Tier 1 next year. And I mean, they obviously don't want to be knocked out in the semi-finals. They want to be making another finals, and obviously they want to rectify that loss in the T20 final and walk away, I guess, as 50 over champions. But I guess Middlesex against Yorkshire, you're eliminating one strong team out of the final already. So I think that's going to be an exciting semi-final to keep an eye out on. And I guess be exciting to be a part of the Northants against Glamorgan final at Sophia Gardens as well. And hopefully Northants can put on a strong performance and see which other opposition in the finals the following week.
I mean, the semi-final is a 2 tiers deep guest clash because we had Finty Truslot on after their success in the final, and we had Amy Campbell on to preview the final. We'll have to see who we can get on after / before the finals this time. But Chloe, it's the best time of the week, and for the last time this season. Isn't that terrifying? It is. Well, I feel like you should introduce it. Tradition.
It is the Tier 2 Team of the Week. Woo! I think you should go first this week. Yeah, I'll give you the honours for taking the last Team of the Week. Also, just making a point that if I don't make the Team of the Week in these 4 teams in the semi-final next week, I'm going to be so disappointed. We have 4 teams to pick from next week. I've surely got to make it. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's all good. All good. Let's go.
Oh, God. Okay, Tier 2 Team of the week. Starting with my opening batter, and I mean, I feel like I don't even need to explain this. Laura Winfield Hill, Yorkshire. She's also my captain and my wicketkeeper, as you do. 194 from 126 balls, people. That's a lot of runs. That's a lot of runs. I think she forgot she was playing in a one-day game. With her, Gwen Davies of Worcestershire. She just missed out on mine last week, so I had to give her a shout out this week. Coming in at 3, Profana Reddy of Gloucestershire was robbed of a century, as we said, with 91 not out. At 4, Daisy Milan of Sussex, and I emphasise the of Sussex, we're the same so far. Daisy Milan of Sussex, who it feels like has been everywhere this season, but she's had a great time. 82 not out from 101. At 5, I've got Francesca Sweet of Leicestershire with a half century. At 6, I've got Maddie Ward of Yorkshire with 69 not out. At 7, okay, this is where we're going to differ, Chloe, because my tail is so long, it's like low-key ridiculous. I've got about 5 number 11 batters in here. So I've got Katie Wolfe of Middlesex with 3 for 26 from 10. Alice Bird of Gloucestershire with 3 for 37 from 10. Lottie Curling of Sussex with 3 for 17. Hannah Davis of Middlesex with 4 for 42. Katie Cobb of Glamorgan with 2 for 18. And then my 12th is Erin Thomas of Yorkshire for 54 from 48. What about you, Chloe? I feel like the start of yours was quite similar.
I think we literally might have exactly the same team again, bar 1. And I'm trying to work out who the difference is, but here we go. Are you ready?
I'll work out who the difference is whilst you're going through yours.
So, opening the batting, and my wicketkeeper and captain is Lauren Winfield Hill. And her opening partner is Gwen Davis from Worcestershire. Coming at 3 is Profana Reddy from Gloucestershire with her 91 not out. Coming at 4 is Daisy Milan from Sussex. Now, I think this is where I've gone a little bit different because I've gone a little bit tactical in my lineup to just make the batting line up a little bit stronger, I've gone coming in at 5, Michaela Kirk from Northants, because she's had such a successful season. Coming in at 6, Francesca Sweets from Leicestershire. Coming in at 7, Maddie Ward from Yorkshire. Now this is where we're pretty much identical again. Coming in at 8 is Lottie Curlin from Sussex. Coming in at 9, Alice Bird from Gloucestershire. 10, Katie Wolf from Middlesex. 11, Hannah Davis from Middlesex. And my 2 12ers are Katie Cobb from Glamorgan and Erin Thomas from Yorkshire. That is my Tier 2 Team of the Week, and I think it's pretty much the same.
That is mental. That's actually mental. The only thing it's different in is the different batting order, because I'm going to be honest, I was looking at all my tail enders and I was like, who wants to go first? There was no journalistic research or anything from me. I was literally like, oh, okay, I found you first, you go first.
I think that just shows our journalist and cricketer on this podcast. But literally, we've done it probably 3 weeks in a row now of a similar Tier 2 Team of the Week. I can't wait to see what our Tier 1 Team of the Week's going to be next week as well.
If we get any cricket.
Well, we've got a game on right now. We've got Lancashire playing Somerset, which... Yeah, Lancashire are 9 for no loss after 4.5 overs. With Gabby Lewis opening the batting, shout out that they've got Gabby Lewis in Lancashire.
I love seeing Irish representation in women's cricket, because we had it loads back in the day, but now that we have like proper, and for people who are listening to the podcast, there's an emphasis on air quotes here, overseas players, we don't really have Irish representation anymore.
Yeah, and I guess not many people know that, but I've actually got Irish background in me as well, so I always love an Irish cricketer over in the domestic game. And I guess if I wanted to, I could have followed my Irish roots and gone down that way, but yeah, stuck with England and stuck with the domestic game.
I mean, there is one bit of Tier 1 news we do need to touch on briefly before we introduce you to our very special guest. We've lost another head coach, Chloe. We have lost 2 of the 8 head coaches. Andy Tennant and Essex have mutually decided to split ways. Does that make sense? Yeah, to split ways. And I don't know who the interim is. Who's the interim? Jason Gallion.
Jason Gallion is a former English Test cricketer, a right-handed open batter, and he originally hails from Australia and captained their under-19 side to 2 under-19 tests in 1989 and 1990. He has represented Essex, Lancashire, Nottinghamshire, Oxford University, and... well, it says England on here, but that can't be true.
He could have swapped.
Yeah,
he could have swapped.
I think he has.
Could have swapped.
Yeah,
because under 19 level doesn't count. You can then go anywhere.
He is a right-handed batter and a right-arm medium fast bowler.
So they've gone for a former player in Jason Gallion.
Yeah, let's see how he goes in these last 4 matches for Essex. And who knows, is it something that's going to be made more permanent, or is he just the interim for the last 4 matches?
Do you want to know someone I would really love to get back involved in women's cricket?
Go on.
Mark Robinson.
Yeah, at domestic level.
But I think there's a bit of an absence of coaching at the moment. And almost having someone who's had that... Get Chloe. Oh my God. Please go and head coach a Tier 1 team. I would be obsessed.
Could you imagine? I did see a team in Tier 1 advertising for an assistant role, and I was like, oh, should I?
Oh, it would add a whole other layer to the Two Tiers Deep podcast. Give us like top secret insights.
I don't think that would go down well.
Oh God.
Hey, hey.
Hi, Daggers.
Hey, how are you?
Hello. Good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I can't see a thing. Bear with me. Let me clean my glasses. Oh, God. Go away. This is what I've got to live with, right? I can't hear you at the moment, but my goon of a missus just here just said, take the bin out.
Brilliant. Love that.
She just said, take the bin out. I said, I can't. I'm doing a podcast. She said, well, cancel the podcast. And I'm like, to take the bin out?
Yeah.
Yes, darling. Of course I will. This you're getting a real window into my life. You should put this on the podcast, right?
This can be part of the bloopers.
This I love you too. As difficult as it may be, I do. Oh God.
So to kick things off, first of all we probably should introduce. We've not actually introduced you. Super pleased to welcome Daggers to the podcast. Daggers, thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. You've joined me in a time where apparently I have to put the bins out at home, and so this is a lovely distraction from having to do menial duties or gardening or hoovering. So I'd much prefer to be doing this. So thank you for inviting me.
We're super pleased to have you on. And to start with, we're going to talk about something that you've been very much involved with over the past month with Sky, the 100.
Carry on.
And looking at, first of all, both mine and Chloe's predicted champions, the Northern Superchargers, they pulled off a historic win on Sunday against the Southern Brave. What do you think were the key factors behind their success this season?
For me, it's the standard of your overseas players. I think in all franchise cricket, and this has been true back to the times when I was playing in black and white, and even before then, I think the overseas players that you bring in have a role. And I think in the women's game, it's starting to become a little bit more prevalent in the psyche of the overseas player. What is your job as an overseas player? It's to come in and win you some games. That's what we had. I'll take you back to when I was playing. You guys probably wouldn't have been alive then, but when I was playing at Warwickshire or Leicestershire, you brought in your overseas star to either change a game or to win it outright for you. Now, I was lucky to play alongside people like Alan Donald, the great South African fast bowler, Michael Bevan, the Australian international one-day player, fabulous player he was. And, you know, when things weren't necessarily going well as a team, you wanted your superstar to stand up. And not necessarily, you, of course, have a role to play. It could be your day, but that's essentially what you brought your overseas player in. Now, I think in the women's game, in recent years, I don't think that has necessarily been the psyche of a player that's brought into a franchise. I think that they sort of come in, it's a great opportunity, and they play, and they don't necessarily take on board, or they haven't in the past, they haven't necessarily understood the fact that it's on you. You're here and we're paying you to actually change a game or win a game for us. That is changing, and especially when you bring in Australians. And I think players such as Marizanne Kapp, that she's a different individual. She's always been like that, and she knows a lot of the cricket that she plays is on her. So that, but I'm talking generally speaking. So I think that when you bring in players such as Annabelle Sutherland and Phoebe Litchfield, Georgia Wareham, obviously, and I really liked the signing of Nicola Carey because I've watched her for quite some time. And, you know, when Nicola Carey can't really get a consistent gig in international cricket, you know, you've got a decent side. And so I think their understanding of what their role is as overseas players, I think has got a long way to go with the Northern Superchargers. I'm not saying it's purely down to them, but they've had great seasons. You look at some of the other overseas players who haven't necessarily had great seasons. You look at Haley, you look at Jess Jonathan down at the Welsh Fire. Not quite the seasons that you would expect. And that can happen. Any player can go through a dip in form. You just hope that the players that you bring in are in decent nick. And that's what you look at the Birmingham Phoenix. You look at Elise, only a couple of 50s, and that was after the Birmingham Phoenix had pretty much seen off their chances of qualification. So you need your overseas players to come in, hit the ground running, and be firing. As for the Superchargers, I think there's another couple of factors as well. They've got experience. You look at Crossy with the new ball, you know what you're getting. I think they've got a very, very good captain in Holly Armitage. And I think she is arguably one of the best tacticians in the women's game at the moment. And there was an episode, I don't know if you saw it, but she was mic'd up for one of the games. I liked the way that she seemed all over the game. You over there, Georgia, get loose, this, and it's just little. I just liked the way that she approached her captaincy. So I'm sure there are other factors that go into play. On some games it can be whether you win the toss or lose the toss, and that's just the game of cricket. But when over an 8-game stretch in the league, and then an eliminator and a final, you've got to have a certain amount of secret sauce. And the Northern Superchargers seem to have that. And, the other thing I will say is that if you win 8 out of 8 in the league game, in the league stages, you're due. You're due a loss. That is, again, the nature of cricket. And weirdly, and I know this sounds odd, and look, when you're in it, if you're part of the Southern Brave, you want to win every game that you play. Of course you do. But that defeat in the league stages can reset you a little bit. It can humble you a little bit. It can keep you honest. I'm not saying that the Southern Brave needed humbling. Just on the day, the Superchargers were a better outfit. But, you always think in the back of your mind, we've not lost one yet, and the gods of cricket don't necessarily allow you to go through a perfect season. So a very long-winded answer, as you will find with most of mine, to the question that you asked. But overall, I think you've got to look at the players that you bring in and the experience nature of people like Holly Armitage and Kate Cross. And look at the 18-year-old that's at the top of the order. When you get her firing, and last year she didn't, because you need a little bit of experience. You've got to have a bit of knowledge of the game and yourself. And when you're growing up and learning the game, like Davina Perrin is, that takes a bit of time. It takes a bit of time for anybody, but goodness me, the way that she got that 70 against the Trent Rockets, I was there. It was a very, very clever innings, as well as it being brutal. She was using this. And that's a good sign. The 100 in the eliminator. So she's still got a long way to go, in my opinion, but the seeds are there. So yeah, there's 132 reasons why the Northern Superchargers won the 100.
I mean, on the note of Davina Perrin, that 42-ball century was something else in that eliminator. And there's been a lot of talk surrounding her and whether or should she be in contention for that home World Cup next year. What do you think?
Yes, she should be in contention. I think I'm not necessarily one to. I'm going to contradict myself here a little bit. So it's an argument that I'm fighting in my own head, really, which is never a good place to be in my head. I think that I believe that I'm going to talk about 50 over and 20 over cricket. Now, this World Cup squad, which I'm sure we'll go on to later, I think this current England side at the moment is coming towards its end of its cycle. I want to see a new cycle and players brought in and nurtured in the next 4-year 50 over cycle. Now, because of the structure of the ICC women's tournaments, they're quick and fast, and there's one after another, and that is a tough ask for Charlotte Edwards and Lydia Greenway to select a side and blood new players. I'm also going to say that I am quite a harsh sort of critic, if you like, And this is nothing against Davina Perrin, in that she is one of the most exciting 18-year-olds we've got, and she needs to be in and around that England setup. I'm looking at the minutiae. Who's she scoring these runs against? When is she scoring them? What are the conditions surrounding these runs? And I think that's where England women's cricket need to be at. I think you've got to go through these fine details with a fine tooth comb if you want to get to where Australia are. Now, they're 3 years ahead, I think, over the John Lewis. And I don't think this is all on John Lewis, by the way, but I think that gap has actually stretched a little bit. So where England might have been 2 or 3 years behind, they're possibly 3 or 4 years behind now, Australia, and that's not a good place to be. How do you rectify that? Well, you have a look at the young talent, but you also have to go into the finer details, and if you want to get to where you want to go. So, do I think that Davina Perrin will be there next T20 World Cup? Quite possibly, but I'd like her in and around. I'd like her to even if it's an A tour, a Lions tour, or whatever, more of that, or to be picked in a squad, maybe get an opportunity here or there in the early season, and see what she does against. Is it too early? Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know how she's going to grow. And this is the delicate thing with teenage cricketers, is that it is a delicate balance to try and strike. And you never know if you're doing the right thing. And it is tough. But I would like to see her talked about. I would like to see her around. I would like to see her given an opportunity. And I want to see her progress in county cricket. I want her to be scoring runs more regularly in county cricket. And that comes with these England players playing domestic cricket, a lot of it, and getting to understand her own knowledge more. She's got this much knowledge at the moment, and with the more cricket you play, you're going to expand that knowledge and you're going to understand the game and yourself a little bit more. So I don't know if that necessarily answers the question. But I certainly think she is a name that you write down as to be someone who you want to give more experience to. There's a word that I can't think of at the moment. Develop. She has got to be one of these players that you develop for the next 10 to 15 years of English cricket.
100% agree with you. And I mean, I don't want to say it's been a bit of a tainted 100 season, because I don't think it has, but there's been a lot of talk swirling around about format changes, ownership changes. How important is the women's 100 for the development pipeline of those England women's players, and how do we retain that role despite these changes?
Oh, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? How important, I think, is absolutely vital on numerous fronts. I try and, I'm still on things like Twitter and stuff. My daughter's on Snapchat. I don't understand it. And TikTok and all of these things. And I'm on Snapchat just to talk to my daughter because she doesn't look at text messages. That's where I am at the moment, right, with social media. Now, I'm still on Twitter. You go down a Twitter wormhole and it's a cesspit, it really is. And it used to be a place where people could ask me a question and have reason to debate and all of this sort of stuff. It doesn't happen that way now. You try, but it doesn't. You're setting yourself up for a fall, hoping for good debate. Now, in this instance, there's still going to be those who don't like the 100 and stuff, and those who don't like the 100 are usually, and I don't want to put everyone in the same boat, but are usually those who are fans of men's cricket. And they don't see what good it has done for the game of cricket. Now, the game of cricket is not exclusive to blokes, right? It is not. It is exclusive to people who want to play. And if you want to play cricket, there is a game for you. And this is something I have always thought. I don't care. I don't care who you are, what race you are, what religion you are, what gender you are, what ability, whether you're able-bodied or disability, if you're deaf or if you're not hard of hearing, if you're blind, or whatever, there's a game of cricket for you, right? There is a game of cricket. I want as many people to play cricket or enjoy cricket as we can. Now, that might sound holier than thou, but it's where I am. Now, regarding the women's game, now I might be slightly biased because I'm so heavily invested in the women's game and have been for 12, 13 years, ever since I covered my first one, and saw what the women's game could be. At the time when I in 2011, when I saw my first women's game, there was the seeds of something. There was good, there was bad. There really was. But how could you expect there to be all good? Because there was no infrastructure, there was no resources, there was no money, right? But you could see where it could be if you threw a bit of cash at it. Now, that has happened, and we fast forward 12 or 13 years. And it's still, I don't think, anywhere close to what it could be down the line. You've got to remember, the women's game in its form at the moment, and I talk about the modern women's game, because that's what I kind of know. I didn't see a great deal. No one did. See a great deal of women's cricket before this sort of modern era. So I think this modern era has to be almost defined, and people will shout at me, but the start of the women's game as we know it, right? And so where lost my train of thought. No. So the 100 being what it is having 3 overseas players, usually from Australia or South Africa and stuff. We have had players from India, the West Indies, and all of that sort of stuff. They are playing at a much higher level. Your domestic players are getting exposure to much higher level. They're also getting exposure to being on television. They're getting exposure to being interviewed. They're getting exposure to people within the grounds. As you've seen, the amount of people, first year, people sort of trickled in for the men's game. People then went, oh, this isn't bad, this. We'll come a little bit earlier. And year on year, women's crowds have got bigger and bigger from the start of the game, and more eyes are on it. Therefore, there's more vested interest, and the game goes upwards. Completely have forgotten the question, by the way. So I think I remember it. So how things will stand with it changing or potentially changing next year. Now, I think the 100 for the women's game has been just so good for all of those reasons that I've just stated. My worry is not necessarily a change of format. If they want to change it to T20, fine. You know, it's people sort of say, oh, well, the 100 is a format no one plays. That's utter garbage, right? It's T20 cricket, right? All the skills are the same. All the tactics are the same. You bowl your Yorkers, you slower balls, you have 4 out in the deep, and there's a power play. It is exactly the same game. And people say, oh, no other play. It's T20 cricket, right? Let's just get that out of the way. Anyone who argues that is just ridiculous. Now, my worry is that with the new investment and with private investment coming in, and look, this is the way it was always going to be. Private investment is across all of sports, and if you want to keep up, you know, that's just the nature of the beast. Money will always win in sport. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm saying that's what it is. It just so happens. I don't want there to be a separated 100 tournament. I want there to be the women's game. I want there to be the men's game. I want those things to go hand in hand because I think it has bred a lot of success. I think if you separate it, I think if you take the women's game, and this is what I will say, I think if you have a standard, you look at the WBBL, right? They separated the WBBL from the BBL, okay? I don't think it has necessarily succeeded doing it that way. I don't think you're necessarily getting the crowds that you would if there was a men's game. It will always be that men's cricket will attract more people than women's cricket. However, if you put these two things on at the same time, you may get a little bit of overlap, okay? And if you take that away, I don't think you necessarily get the crowds or the exposure or the eyes on the game that you want. And that has been the huge success in the 100 for me, that they have gone hand in hand. You have got two teams that align, and that you get two games of cricket in one day. And if you can attract a couple of 3 or 4 or 5% of the people who like men's cricket to the women's game, that is only going to be a good thing. And I think if you detach one from the other, I think it's the women's game that suffers, not necessarily the men's game.
I mean, I think I can speak for both of us in that we absolutely agree with you there. We talk very often about the importance of utilising the core of the men's game in order to grow women's cricket. But having a little look at England, we've had our squad announced for the World Cup. And it feels like quite a transformative one with this leadership transition. Both Nat Sciver-Brunt and Charlotte Edwards lead in their first ICC tournament as captain and head coach. How do you think this leadership style will shape England's campaign?
I don't know. I have been sort of what I think. I also think that of course I want to see a successful England side. I remain pretty neutral over, and have done through my entire broadcasting career. And I've always said I will call things as I see them. And that if some people don't like that, then, and I think one of the aspects from the England women's side is I don't necessarily think they take criticism well. Now, I don't want to criticise, and other people don't want it. It's not just me. Other people don't want to criticise. You want to talk about successes. But I think if there's something there, I don't necessarily think they handle it well. Look at the Winter Ashes and the amount of things that went off the field and their performances on the field, and I don't think they handled it very well at all. Now, I don't necessarily think that's something that's Charlotte Edwards' fault, and I don't think it's actually, I think it's just the nature of the beast where they've had a lot of success. They have now got a lot more eyes on them. They've got a lot more of a following, and you've got to play up to that. And you can't have it both ways. You can't have more people wanting to watch the game, more money coming into your back pocket, but not have to answer to performances that you put in. So I have already said on previous podcasts and stuff like that, I wouldn't have picked Nat Sciver-Brunt as captain, right? I don't think what we have seen in the past when she's taken over when she took over from Heather in a variety of different situations, I don't think she's necessary. I don't know if she wants it. She might want it, but I don't know if she actually, in her heart of heart, wants it. And I could be wrong. And I'm more than happy to put my hand up and say I am, if that's the case. I don't think she's fantastically tactically astute. And I also think that she's our best batter. And I don't want to take anything away from someone who is worried, that puts the fear of God into every other side, because she does. I still believe that she's the best batter in the world, and she can take apart any attack in the world, which is an absolute, that is the core of what you want to build a side around. So, how do I think they're going to approach this World Cup? The squad was an interesting one. The selection was interesting for me. I don't think, you've got to remember that Charlotte Edwards came into this job probably earlier than she first imagined. They had to make some noise and had to make some decisions post-Ashes. I think they made the captaincy one a little too hastily, but they wanted to be seen to be doing something. This falls on those who are above sort of the players and coaches, and not having a succession plan in place. They didn't, they had a perfect opportunity when England went over to Ireland and played 3 T20s and 3 one-day internationals. They gave Kate Cross the captaincy. What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm not saying Kate Cross can't captain the side. Of course she can get. And I think she's a brilliant thinking cricketer, and she is tactically fantastic. But that's not exactly going to bring you experience. Why don't you let Charlie Dean go captain, or let someone else go, Alice Capsey or whatever, get some experience behind them? So anyway, I'm going back in history here, and look, Nat is the captain, and they've picked a squad which I believe that Charlotte has to go with what she knows. You'd be foolish to think otherwise. I don't think it would be right to blood a load of young players in a 50-over World Cup in India. I just don't think that is right. What I do is I go with what I know, and then at the culmination of this World Cup, then start with a blank sheet of paper and write down the names that I want to develop, and core experienced players like Nat Sciver-Brunt, like Lauren Bell, like Charlie Dean, and put those in the side, and then build players that you want to develop, and develop a side over the next 4 years, okay, until the next ICC World Cup. So I don't think they could have picked any other squad, as in, yeah, of course, Kate Cross, does she get in the side? Well, I spoke to Crossy, and she was probably disappointed with how I saw it. And this is, you've got to be, but I'd be doing a disservice if I said to turn around to Kate Cross and said face to face, placating her and saying, oh, well, you would have been in my side. No, actually, she wasn't in my side. That's nothing to do with Kate Cross. I think she's a wonderful cricketer. We've seen in the final. I think she's a fabulous cricketer. And if I could have 11 players with the dedication, the passion, and the professionalism, and I put that word in bold, underlined 3 times, the professionalism of Kate Cross, then I would fill my side with players such as that. I don't necessarily think that that some of the England squad are as professional as they could be, and I'm quite happy to die on that hill. You know, when we talk about how to be a professional, and so would I have picked Kate Cross in my 15? No, I wouldn't, because I think England look better, especially in the subcontinent, with 3 out-and-out spinners. And if Nat's going to bowl, you've got 3 seamers. I think they look a better balanced side when they've got 3 out-and-out spinners playing in that side. So then you look at, if Nat's bowling, then you need 2 other seamers. And Emma, I think, has had a very good summer. I think she's earned her place. She also adds with the bat, and in the field, she's very good. She's good at the death. She can take the new ball if need be. And so I think she has earned that spot. I think that Lauren Bell is a given, given the way that she's bowled over the last 12 to 18 months. And then you're looking at one other seamer, and I want a point of difference. And my point of difference is Lauren Filer. She gives you pace. She's one of the quickest in the world, if not the quickest in international cricket at the moment. I want to have that option. So then I've got to build my squad accordingly. And I'm going to add a leg spinner in Sarah Glenn. And maybe she's not... I still think she's got a very, very fine international record. And I think she is a threat. She picks up wickets because of who's at the other end as well. But I've only got 15 players to choose from at the moment, and now they're suddenly getting filled up. You know, I'm adding Filer, I'm adding Glenn. I need a cover batter. And people will say, Danny White-Hodge, why have they picked her? She's not played one-day international cricket. If I'm Charlotte Edwards, I'm thinking, well, do I want to take Maya Bouchier, or do I want to take a player who has got, you know, played 300 times for England, or however many times she's played, and knows Indian conditions as a backup batter? I'd be leaning towards that side. So now there's another spot that's been taken up. So that's how I think they have built the squad. I'm not in disagreement with it, to be honest, but what I want to see how this squad goes. I don't think they're good enough in the field. I think they're carrying 5 fielders in that side. They're not athletic enough. They're in the field, and that's where you need to be in 50-over cricket. It's in those kind of conditions, in hot and sultry conditions, you've got to be at the peak of physical fitness. I don't know if they are. I don't think they're good enough in the field. I think they've got sort of one or two issues with the bat. You know, I don't think Amy Jones opening is the right option for them. You know, and I think Amy Jones is one of those names that I'd be looking at to, you know, along with others. That's not just on Amy. I think other players as well, when you get that brand new sheet of paper for post World Cup. So I'm not expecting them to win it. And I think it's a battle to make the semi-finals for this England side, given what we have seen over the last, 18 months or so of international cricket. Against India, they look pretty ordinary, and they were found out on a lot of fronts. But if they go and win it, happy to turn around and say I was wrong.
Just obviously looking back that the Tier 1 county fixtures have started again at the moment.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on the England players who are being rested at the moment for these current county matches?
Chloe, it's your first question. I've given some enormously long answers to Rosa, and this is going to be a very short answer. They should be playing cricket. That's it. They should be playing cricket. I I have banged this drum so hard that there is no pressure, no understanding, and no experience that can be gained from being in a gym or whatever, or being in nets than playing games of cricket. And I think if you are available, then and you are, I just don't get it. I don't get it. They missed. There was another 50 over round of games that they missed as well. I think this England team needs games of cricket. I think they have to understand how to build innings in 50 over cricket and to bowl and to work on your skills. And there is no better way of doing it than playing games. So that's my answer. And I've got no other answers for you. I think there's nothing. You know what Joe Root does? I'll tell you. Do you know why Joe Root's the best player in the world? Because he looks for games of cricket to keep him in that zone of batting, right? Even if he's not, he'll go out and turn out for Sheffield Collegiate if he has to, right? And just to get out in the middle and stay in touch and stay in keeping with the game and or he'll turn out for Yorkshire, or he'll turn out for the Trent Thunder because he's getting an innings, he's playing the game, all right? And I said this was going to be a short answer. It's now turning out not to be. Is that women have it different than blokes. Let me explain. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm more than happy to be corrected. But in formative years, so in your teenage years and the stuff, I go back to, again, when I was a teenager. I was 15 years old. I am playing under 15 cricket for my club, under 18 cricket for my club. I'm playing representative cricket and I'm playing men's cricket at the weekend, right? I'm playing probably 4 or 5 games of cricket in the week, okay? The women's game doesn't have that yet, okay? So I am learning, as a 15-year-old boy, I am learning all sorts of different things from the game of cricket, which makes me more aware of what I need to be. Now, this is not the women's game's fault, okay? It's just the nature of it. So in the women's game, at club level or grassroots level, and then into playing county level now in the tiers and stuff like that. Now they're playing a lot more domestically, but still, when you think of the amount of games that I played, or a 15-year-old plays now, from the ages of 14 to 18 years of age, the weight is enormous in the men's game. It's not as much in the women's game. So how do you try and fix that? Well, obviously, a lot more clubs are trying to are putting together women's sections. The amount of cricket is going up, and that will take some time. I'm not saying this is the fault of the current setup and stuff. That's just the way it is. And so how do you rectify that? By playing games, by more games of cricket. Get the body used to churning out 10 over spells, to fielding for 50 overs, to being switched on for 50 overs, for taking that deep catch under a bit of pressure because there's something on it, as opposed to taking 50 catches in practice or whatever where there's nothing on it, you know. And I don't think there is any substitute for getting more games of cricket behind you in the back pocket, because I think it makes you a better all-round player.
Just if we're going to move on to about the tiered system and the setup, obviously we spoke about Davina Perrin earlier. Do you think she is a product of this developing domestic system, and how do you think the introduction of the tiered system has raised the standard of English domestic cricket overall?
It's a good question, and whether I'm qualified to answer that, I'm not quite sure. I will do my best. It's too small of a sample size at the moment, in that this is only the first year of it. And I think there are still some remnants of what happened in the sort of, if you want to call it a franchise model, but the regional model that it was. I actually am a sort of big fan of the way, and this is what you can do in the women's game as well, because it's so embryonic, is that you can try things and change things and see what works and see what doesn't work, and then come up with a system that actually works the best, rather than having something that's been ingrained for 150 years. So with the amount of development of the women's game over the last decade or so, obviously you're going to have more depth, and eventually, and that will just keep going up, because the amount of young girls that are picking up bats and balls and playing at local clubs and getting interested in the game is probably the fastest growing sport in the country, I would argue. It is the women's game. So I think they've done it the right way. Do you remember when it used to be the Kia Super League, and I think there was 5 teams? God, I'm going back now and you're testing my memory, but I think it was 5 or 6 franchises, I think, in the Kia Super League. Then that expanded a little bit to 8 as it was, and now we've got 8 in the counties, and setting it up with the counties, aligning it with the counties. There are going to be 9 next year, 10 the year after, and then you've got 18 counties and the national counties as well. So I think what that does is that it provides a platform for the more players coming through, and I think those who show a little bit of talent or a little bit of quality or whatever will naturally get picked up on by those in tier 1s and so. I would like to see eventually a sort of promotion relegation. I think that will come in time, but at the moment I think it's fine as it is. But I think having that in place for I'm talking maybe 6 to 10 years down the line, when you have got, a lot higher quality because of the amount of young women that are picking up the game and taking it through and want to take it onto a higher level. You've actually got a system in place that can accommodate that quality and that amount of players. And I think the counties have the infrastructure to do that. I think players will feel more akin to playing for counties than regions. And I think, you develop in the Lancashire area, you want to put the Red Rose on your chest or the Warwickshire Bear. And I think that is actually a really, really good thing. I was a bit not wary. I just wanted to make sure that the women's cricketers were not an afterthought with counties in the men's, given that their weight in the men's game. I wanted them to have the same facilities, the same opportunity, and the same, when it comes to practice or playing or whatever it may be. I didn't want them to go, oh, well, we've got our women's team, we've got our extra funding, and now we're just going to let them sit and rot, sort of thing. That was my only slight worry. I'm sure that's not the case, and maybe I'm being way too cynical, but my worry was the game has gone so far with the structure that was in place. I'm totally in agreement with that, moving on to something different, but I want to make sure that those facilities and infrastructure and all of those sort of things, that the game is taken care of and is allowed to grow. And I'm absolutely convinced that is exactly what will happen, because there'd be bloody uproar if there wasn't. So I think now with the game can cope with a lot more players that will start to generate over the next sort of 5 to 10 to 20 years kind of thing. So that's my gut feel. Whether it plays out like that, I don't know. And whether there are changes to be made down the line by those in the corridors of power, I also don't know. But what I would also like to see is a lot more conversation, and maybe there is, I don't know. I'm not in the corridors of power. I'm just some moron who chats about the game. But I care about it. I do. I care deeply about the women's game, and I want there to be conversations between those at England level and the top levels and counties, a lot more freer conversation. I want to see, I want to see England get upset if I'll give you an example. Sorry. I'll give you an example. I went out to Somerset to watch Somerset versus Essex, and it was going to be a televised game, both the women's and the men's. And Ellie Anderson wasn't picked for Somerset. And I was like, what the hell? Why is she not playing? I want to see this young quick bowler who I saw at England under 19 levels. Why is she not playing? And I want to be in a position that Charlotte Edwards, now it might not happen this way, but that Charlotte Edwards picks up the phone and says to the Somerset coach, hey, I want her to play. She needs experience. She needs exposure and all of that sort of stuff. Now, in that situation, the season had gone for Somerset. They weren't going to qualify. They weren't going to make it towards to the T20 finals. So why isn't this young prospect playing? I didn't understand. I don't understand that, right? I understand, though, a county coach going back and saying, well, hang on a second, we have got a chance of qualification. And I'm going to pick the best side that I can pick for my job to get. So I understand, but I want to see those conversations at least happen. Two sides arguing about the fact that we want to see this, and because that essentially that sort of conversation, even though you might not agree and you might not get to a decision, and this party might be annoyed or this party might be annoyed, at least that it forces the conversation out there, and that is to the good, ultimately, of the game.
Just a little editor's note from me. Chloe had to leave the interview a little bit early due to personal reasons, but she'll be back in action next week.
The last one from me is kind of looking at you touched on this briefly, but looking at the tiered system, and obviously it's been very successful this season, but how do you think we ensure it's sustainable in the long term? Because obviously we can't be in a situation again where we start again, because we've done that. We did that 4 or 5 years ago. We can't go around in circles, because in order for growth, it needs to be sustained. So what do you think are maybe the biggest challenges to that, and how do we ensure that?
That's a really, really good question. I honestly, my gut tells me I think we're done with the domestic structure. As in, I don't think it will change. I don't think it's worthwhile financially to pour more money into a brand new, different change. I think the structure is there. It is in situ and has been for a long time with counties. And I don't foresee that happening. Now, I was a little bit skeptical about the nature of the process. What I mean by that was that we've got 8 Tier 1 clubs, and then Yorkshire are joining next year, and then Glamorgan are joining the year after that. Well, why? I don't get that. I'm sure there are some very good reasons that someone will tell me, but this is how I see it. Excuse me, sorry, terrible. It's fizzy drinks. Is that if I am a county, if I'm Durham, for argument's sake, and I'm really happy Durham got a tier 1 club, because they are a brilliantly run club. They really are. I can't think of many other clubs that run themselves as well as Durham do. And I know how well the women's players will get looked after there. But essentially, they didn't have like a franchise. There was the Northern Diamonds, which essentially was Yorkshire, and so they have to go out and be competitive. So they've got to sign a lot of players, right? And a lot of those players were from the Yorkshire system and or from the Northern Diamonds, and they added a couple in Manny Villiers and players such as that, and Lauren Filer, for that matter. Now you want to go and sign. If I'm a county, I want to go and sign I would sign the entire England team if I could, and if I can afford it, I would. That's exactly what I would have done. I would have actually maybe taken some budget out of, because I'm selfish. If I'm a county, I want the best team I can possibly have to take to the field and beat everybody else. That is what I want to do, because I want to win, right? So I might take some budget out of the men's side and burst onto the women's team and just get everyone from the England side and sign them for me. Now, of course, that doesn't happen. Players don't work like that necessarily. But what I like about this is that the women's game then now has to develop in a different way. What do I mean by that? Well, going back to, again, sorry to lean on my experience, but I was a Lancashire schoolboy. I was a Lancashire junior. I played all the way up until 19 years old. I was Lancashire under-19 player of the year, and I didn't get signed. I didn't get signed by Lancashire. I was devastated, absolutely devastated. It's in hindsight, they made exactly the right decision. But so I've got to then go and sign with somebody else. So I've got to go and sign with Warwickshire. I've got to move. But I want to play cricket. I want to play cricket, and I've got to go to Warwickshire. And then when I was at Warwickshire, Leicestershire came in for me. So I'm going to go to Leicestershire now. So rather than the women's game necessarily being sort of, oh, I'm from Somerset and I want to play in this particular area, or I don't want to move anywhere else. Well, actually, there's cash involved now. You might be getting 10 grand a year more from Durham, and that puts the women's game. That now it's a different decision to make. You know, and what are you going to offer me? Are you going to offer me a place to stay, a car to drive, or what? These are all things that the men's game has dealt with for years and years and years and years. It's relatively new in the women's game. So it might be easier for you. You might live in Hampshire and have a house in Hampshire and have a car in Hampshire, and actually it's not worth you moving for 10 grand to go and play at Lancashire. But if they offer you 20, now you're thinking. So these are different aspects, and it gets round to my point eventually, as most things do, is that if I'm Yorkshire and I know I'm joining Tier 1 next year, okay, all of the players have gone. They want to be playing Tier 1 this year, and Glamorgan in 2 years' time. Good luck signing players, because they're all contracted to all of the Tier 1 clubs already. So when Glamorgan come round and looking for their players to try and sign or develop, or if you can't sign those players, you've got to develop players in the space of 2 years to be of good enough quality to compete at Tier 1 level. If you can't sign those players because they're already contracted by Lancashire, Hampshire, Somerset, Essex, all of these people. So now, that's not to say if you are a player who is contracted with a young player, say, let's take, I don't know, let's think of a player. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head who's not necessarily getting a game. All right. Let's take Phoebe Brett. Right, let's take Phoebe Brett. Okay, now Phoebe Brett, maybe on the sort of, she might be getting a game here and there. For the county side, she might not necessarily be a nailed on starter, and when the England players come back, she might get dropped, and I'm not talking about Phoebe Brett, but a player like Phoebe Brett, okay, or someone who's playing or recently played for the England under-19s. If I'm Charlotte Lambert or someone like that, right, and I'm not necessarily getting a game at my county for all the time, that might be a good option. Glamorgan might come into you and say, right, well, we're going to pay you the same, but we're going to guarantee you 12 games of Metro Bank, and we're going to guarantee you 12 games of Vitality Blast cricket, and you're going to play every single game, kind of thing. Now, that is something that Glamorgan can do. But it is a bit of an ask to come in and be immediately competitive 2 years down the road. And similarly with Yorkshire, because they've all signed, all the players, and rightly so, because you've got to look after yourself. You want to be playing at the highest level you can and be paid as well as you can possibly be paid. So I still think that's a bit wonky. I'm not saying it's the end of the world. I'm not saying it's a decision that will have lasting ramifications on the game of women's cricket. I'm just saying it seems a bit wonky to me. If you're going to do it, just do it. Just if you're going to make a tier one, make it now, and stop faffing about. And you've got 10 teams in tier one, and you've got however many teams in tier two, and then what I've no problems about is the promotion relegation thing. I've no problems with that for now. If you want to do that after 3 years, there's bigger issues than that to worry about. And if you want to wait 3 years till promotion and relegation, till there's 3 years worth more of players coming in through the system, and being good enough to play and get that experience, I've got absolutely no problems with it. I just thought it was a bit wonky, really, and just stop buggering about and just do it instead of the problems that I foresee Yorkshire may be having. Yorkshire are not exactly tearing up trees in the 50 over comp in division in tier two. What are they, fourth? You look at Middlesex at the moment. Middlesex in the season they've had, they're superb, right? They're battering everyone. They're not going to be into tier one next year. I kind of think that's good and bad at the same time. Middlesex could firmly believe that they are good enough to get promoted, but by the same token, I don't think it's the end of the world that they're not. It's making a mountain out of a molehill, personally. But yeah, I just think it's a bit wonky. I would have just started with 10 and cracked on.
I also think from a logistical point of view, it's just a nightmare having an odd number of teams when you could just have an even number, make everyone's lives, because it means you're always going to have a weekend where there's a team not playing.
Yeah, and
bit
wonky for me, but I say all of these things on every single topic. I say all of these things from what I see from the outside. I'm not in the corridors about. I say what I see. I try and speak to people. I try and learn, and make as informed an opinion as one can. That's all you can do. I'm not in the corridors of power. Whether I'd want to be or not is another matter. I would do things. Certainly, I would do things a lot differently if I was in the corridors of power from the England team. But that's just me. I would take. I would not change. I wouldn't change anything structurally. I would change the ethos, and I would change the attitude, and I would try and change the processes for the England players. I don't think they're in place. I don't think they are. I don't think they're professional enough. I really don't, as in the processes and stuff. Hopefully Charlotte will change that, but I don't think that's up to Charlotte to change. That should come up from higher up than Charlotte. So, but you can only say what you see and what you hear, and make your opinion. I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. They might have a very good reason behind it, and maybe, and I'm more than happy, and on any topic, I am more than happy to be put right by those who might know what's going on a bit more than I.
Well, we really appreciate your perspective. One of the reasons we started this podcast is to kind of combine, I guess, the perspective of me as the journalist and Chloe as the active player who obviously is playing in tier two, but has a lot of experience in the professional game. But thank you so much for coming on. We do really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure, and happy to pop on again at some point, as long as the bins don't need taking out.
Thanks for listening to this week's Two Tiers Deep. If you like to find me, Chloe Hill, you can find myself on Instagram with a new Instagram page covering this podcast at Two Tiers Deep CH. Or I'll pass you over Rosa to find herself at
Rosa Talks Ball. Or if you have any questions, you can contact us on rosatalksball@gmail.com. And please don't hesitate to get in touch.